My name is Ellie Beck, and I'm presenting on mental health of college athletes. My research question is, to what extent does the culture of silence surrounding mental health in elite college athletes contribute to loneliness, depression, and burnout among Division I student athletes, and what interventions are most effective in addressing these issues? So I took my argument from two different stimulus, my primary being Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation from the U.S. Surgeon General. It talks about how loneliness harms health. My secondary stimulus is Dad, Ballpark Will Live On, and Shared Memories. It also talks about how athletics brings connections. Athletes are often expected to feel connection, but in reality, they feel isolation. For context, the NCAA explains that athletes feel unable to speak up due to multiple reasons, one of them being the culture of silence, which the gavel defines as athletes silently suffering. This can cause an environment where athletes' mental health problems continue to grow. Lauren Betts, a UCLA women's basketball standout, opened up about her struggles with mental health and depression in her article, I Want to Be Here. She stated, I felt like there was no other option but to go to a hospital. I was just like, there's no other way out. Either I'm going there or I'm doomed. The U.S. Surgeon General states that the lack of social connection is cited as a prime reason for leaving a college program. In fact, in 2024, the 82% of men's Division I basketball players enter the transfer portal, and this number only increased with the women going up to 86%. So why does this matter? According to the Sport Journal, 25 to 30% of collegiate athletes have depression or anxiety, while only 10% seek help. This begs the question, how many athletes have mental health problems that we don't know about, and why aren't they seeking help? In fact, 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness each year. So, in order to nullify the increasing mental health disorders in college athletes, the NCAA should require a mandatory mental health training for all Division I coaches that can be added on to their already continuous training that they have. This will help the coaches to be able to recognize and respond to their athletes' mental health problems before they even get started. Athletes often experience stress not just from athletics but also academics. This constant pressure can lead to burnout. In fact, according to NCSA college recruiting, athletes train for about 60 hours per week, which leaves little time to do anything else, including studying and resting and taking a mental break. So, the NCAA did a research and it states that only 49% of men and 34% of women say that they have time to eat a healthy meal each day. Overtraining is often a central factor in fatigue as well because athletes feel self-reliant and they want to prove themselves to their coaches because they are fearing of being perceived as weak. According to the NCAA, only about 50% of 23,000 male and female student athletes who were tested reported feeling comfortable seeking help from a mental health provider on campus. Another graph from the NCAA shows that 66% of women and 43% of men wish that their coaches would discuss mental wellness more. Authors Julian Yoon and Trent Petrie write that athletes face high expectations related to their sports, academic standards to remain athletically eligible, the possible loss of sports, scholarships, potentially negative interactions with or demands from coaches, and the ever-present reality that they might experience a career-ending injury. In Our Epidemic of Loneliness, it states that lacking social connection is as dangerous as smoking up to 15 cigarettes per day. When college athletes seclude themselves from others, it is more than simply dangerous. It can cause premature death. In fact, it can cause premature death, increasing the risk by 26 to 29%. In order to solve this solution, the NCAA should have a mandatory mental health assistant training for all coaches to have the ability to assist their athletes with any and all mental health needs, and this will help create an openness in the college athletes. Conversely, some may argue that requiring classes for coaches seems unnecessary because that coaching and being a psychologist serve distinctly different purposes. In fact, a quote from Dr. Kenitha Olingwu states, "Coaching has a different focus in that it seeks to enhance capabilities and effectiveness rather than addressing emotional processing." However, there are some limitations, being that Division I coaches do have a busy schedule, and there is also investment uncertainty, being that this has never been done on a wide scale before, and also money is always a factor. However, Division I schools operate between $2 million to $250 million annually. This being said, they can easily implement classes for their coaches. So, if the NCAA fails to provide classes for coaches, there could be a drop in mental health, there could be more health concerns, and the athletes may underperform. However, if the classes are added, they will help reduce stigma, which is like favoritism. It will have clarity between the coaches and athletes, and there will be a more positive impact on the athlete's overall mental health wellness. So, in conclusion, loneliness is not just a social issue, but a serious health risk that must be dealt with. These are my words cited. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. I had a couple of questions for you. The first one is, how did the stimulus materials inspire your original research? And which stimulus materials prompted your research question, which you've answered so much, but how did the stimulus materials inspire your original research?
Yes, so the stimulus materials taught a lot about isolation, and then when I thought about it, I was thinking, well, there's a lot of isolation and depression in athletes, so what would it be interesting to look into why that is caused and how that is implemented in athletes and how it can be solved.
Okay. And what additional questions emerged for you as you did your research? Why are these questions important? What additional questions emerged for you as you did your research?
Yeah. Some additional questions would be like, how could we easily implement the classes for the coaches, being that it's not been done that much, and it made me want to research how it could be possible to implement them and how much it would really help the athletes, and yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Yes.